Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Marvin,
Amber,
and Liberty's in the other room relaxing, and we are with the Family
O.
We have the honor and privilege to bring a very special video to you guys. We are going to be talking to Mr. AshCash, author of the book 444, The Wake Up Call, Financial Inspiration from the book 444. How are you today, Mr. Cash?
I'm doing well, Amber, Marvin. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to have this important conversation.
Yeah,
definitely. And Mr. Cash is not a new jack to this financial game. He's got a lot behind his name. I'm just going to read it to you guys quickly. He is a speaker, best-selling author, personal finance expert, business consultant, and spiritual advisor to entrepreneurs, celebrities, athletes, and executives. And so we wanted to take a couple of minutes of his time to discuss some of the principles behind his wonderful, wonderful book and how it applies to your life in 2018 and beyond. And if you want to go ahead and get the book, the link to get it will be in the description below. So we'll get started, Mr. Cash. I want to talk to you briefly about, the inspiration behind the book, as far as, what made you choose 444 and write a book about it.
No, absolutely. For me, I've been a Jay-Z fan for a very long time, since I was a teenager, honestly. And so I've always been able to get, some nuggets from Jay's music. He's, obviously somebody who's very influential. But when I listened to 444, there was so much financial nuggets that were coming out through the book. And so specifically, when you listen to the story of OJ, and he's talking about, financial freedoms are only hope, and he's talking about credit, he's talking about generational wealth, he's talking about cooperative economics, right? What's better than one billionaire too? And so said to me, I was just inspired by it. And it actually started as a workshop. So it wasn't, my intention wasn't originally to do a book, because I travel the country. I do a lot of work with colleges, specifically college students, and so I travel and I do workshops, and I'm always trying to find innovative ways to bring the point home. And so friends of mine, shout out to my guy Jeff, my guy Lenny. They have a company called Trill or Not Trill, and what they do is they take pop culture and they teach leadership to college students using pop culture. And so one day, I was, my friend Lenny was doing a presentation, and I'm looking at his presentation, and he's teaching leadership using Drake. And I was like, wow, like it was so eye-opening, because it was entertaining, one, but then at home drawing these comparisons between Drake and leadership. And so fast forward to me listening to Jay-Z's album and seeing all of these different financial principles that he was talking about in the album, I said, you know what, I'm gonna try this thing out. And so I did a workshop called The Wake Up Call, and I was traveling throughout the country, and I started to talk about these principles. One thing I realized is that people, they love the concept, they love the information, but the students wanted more. They were asking for more. They were asking, well, how do I do this, right? The information I was giving in a 45-minute workshop was good, but people needed more. And so the more I started doing the workshop, the more I realized the author in me said, this is a perfect opportunity to bridge that gap between what he was saying, right? Because Jay-Z was giving you the what needs to happen, like what do you need to do? But somebody needed to give the how, and so I wanted to be I wanted to be the bridge between the what and the how.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's a really, really dope way that it looks like it just kind of evolved to the book that you have. And what I really liked about your book is that it's very understandable. If you're not a Jay-Z fan, you would become a Jay-Z fan by reading your book. If you're not into money and you're really just a hip hop head, you can appreciate how you broke down a lot of the points and a lot of the lyrics in the song that we'll talk about in some of the chapters of your book, and how it, again, applies to your personal life. How you can take, of course, Jay's a multi-millionaire, but there's still a lot of game that he's given for $9.99, and this is how you can apply it to your specific life. So I wanted to ask you the first question here. What are some of the pitfalls that we can avoid as people that can set our families' financial security back generations? What are some things that we need to avoid moving forward in order to get our money right, starting, you know, with the family?
No, absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's really controlling the dollar, right? It's understanding, our dollar has power in it, but because we give it away so freely, no one respects that power. Whether it's from a consumer perspective, whether it's politicians, whether it's our schools, whether you name it, we give away our power. And I think that it's important that we understand that our money is power. And so as a family, we need to first start to dictate, who gets our dollar. And in the moment that people are not respecting our dollar, we hold that dollar back. A lot of times, especially in the social media era, we hear people talk about, boycotting certain companies, things of that nature. And those boycotts would be effective if we were collectively doing it, right? You think about the Montgomery bus boycott. People think that, it was just Rosa Parks sitting down. And no, it was a year-long boycott, meaning that because of the discrimination, collectively, a group of people said, you know what, I am not going to ride this bus. And for 1 year, they did not ride the bus. They walked to work, and it started to kill the pockets of the bus owners. And they said, you know what, we need to revisit this. And so that is a example of how we could use our power today. And so I think first and foremost, it's definitely, one of the pitfalls to your question is we don't direct our dollar. We don't use our dollar in the way that we're supposed to use it, number one. But then number two, it goes down to ownership, right? And so, Jay-Z says this, not in 444, but he says this in I Got the Keys: until you own your own, you can't be free. And so I think that, as a family, we need to start thinking more as owners. How do we own as much as possible? So whether it's, owning, intellectual property, whether it's owning real estate, whether it's owning our own businesses, somehow we need to be in an ownership game, because that's the pitfall. We become consumers and not producers, right? So there's four types of people. You have consumers, you have producers, you have investors, and you have philanthropists, right? Consumers are the people who give their money away. But when you think about being a producer, you're the one that's going to create something, and people are going to pay you for that creation. As an investor, you're investing in something that you own, so you're going to be able to make money from that. And so that is the paradigm shift that needs to happen in our community, where we start. It's nothing wrong with being a consumer, but you can't just be a consumer. You have to be a producer and an investor as well, and a philanthropist. Because that's how you circle money, and you get that good.
Right, and I think that's a dope point. And if we take a look at the movie Black Panther, for example, and how at this point it's done $1 billion with a B, y'all, $1 billion. That shows, and the fact that the majority of the audience obviously was African American individuals, ourselves included. We had a conversation about how we can make the shift, because we're gonna spend the money. We were gonna go watch this movie. That was a collective. That was something that we needed to do. But outside of that, we bought shares of Disney stock. That way,
there we go.
When the proceeds are spread out, obviously Disney owns Marvel, and they are chugging movies out for a consistent basis. We, thinking of our child, we bought some Disney stock, as well as we bought some AMC stock. So we wanted to cover the movie aspect of it and the movie theater experience. We bought shares of both. And so from that, we wanted to, we are owners now. We are small owners, but we are owners of the company nonetheless. And we wanted to utilize that, and we will pass that down to our daughter, and she'll pass that down to her children and her children's children. And again, that's generational wealth, and that's how we grow it.
Exactly, definitely. No, I just wanted to say, so in Jay-Z's 444, of course, one of the prominent discussions was about financial freedom. And so you mentioned that obviously in your book, and we wanted you just to expound on that a little bit more and tell our audience, why is it so important for us to have that freedom in our finances?
No, absolutely. I think, when we look at, everything that we do, from where we work, socially, everything that we do, revolves around finances regardless. I don't care, you know, how much people try to separate the two. But our life is surrounded by finances. And so when you think about financial freedom, it's really based on what you say your life, how you want your life to be. And so financial freedom is relative to the person, right? The person, the family. You know, if somebody wants $1 million lifestyle, then there's certain things that they're going to have to do in order to have that $1 million lifestyle. But, you know, the people who want to, you know, stop living paycheck to paycheck, the people who want to get out of debt, the people who want to just, you know, wake up every day, be happy and enjoy their life, it all boils down to financial freedom. It all boils down to being free to live your life the way you want to live your life without having to worry about money. And so that's why, you know, financial freedom is important, is because, you know, we have a God-given right of abundance. And so if we don't realize that, we have a God-given right to be abundant, then we're going to accept anything. We're going to accept what life throws at us. But no, we were born to be abundant. And so because we have that birthright, that God-given right to be abundant, we have to be financially free. We should not be waking up thinking about how we're going to meet our basic necessities. Not in 2018. We should not be waking up trying to figure out, you know, why we should be meeting our basic necessities. In fact, we should not be waking up dreading to go to a job that we don't like and be around people we don't want to be around, because that's also about financial freedom. If we start to take control of our finances, we start to use our jobs as investment vehicles, right? Changing that relationship with money. Instead of working hard for money, we use that money to work hard for us. Then we could dictate what we do with our time, right? We shouldn't be at a space where we're like, you know what, I hate this job, but I have to work here because I got to feed my kids, because I got to go to, you know, because of work, or because I got to pay my mortgage, or I got to live life. Everything that you should do, everything that you do should be around things that you love to do. And that love starts with, you know, being able to meet your basic necessities, but then also being able to thrive as well. And so that's why financial freedom is important, because with financial freedom comes time freedom, right? You're able to dictate your time. You're able to do the things that you love to do. You're able to spend time with the people you want to spend time with. And that's why financial freedom is our only hope. And that's why it's important.
I think that's dope. I think that's dope. Very, very true. Very true. So there was another part in the book where you talked about the line that Jay-Z's daughter at the beginning, where she's like, "Daddy, what's a will?" and all that.
Yes.
So if you can tell our audience quickly the importance of wills, estate planning. You know, many of us know about, you know, wills because our grandmas and all that, they may or may not have had one. But there are instances where there is no will. If you think about Prince and Bob Marley and a lot of these other individuals that died without a will, and the headaches that can create. So tell our audience, you know, once you do build the wealth, how important is it to have wills and proper estate planning in place?
No, absolutely. It's so important. It is vital that we protect our assets, right? So, you know, you think about, even if you take it back for a second, if you think about all of the economic injustice that has happened to Black and brown people, right? You think about slavery, you think about Jim Crow, you think about redlining, you think about mass incarceration, you think about all of these things that, you know, stopped us economically, right? And so now you fast forward to a point where we are at a space where we can build wealth. We can begin to enjoy, you know, the American dream. And I'm doing the quotes, right? you know, we can enjoy it. And so what happens is that when we start to work hard and build it, if we don't protect it, then we can lose it all, right? And so I mentioned, you know, Jay-Z, Prince and Bob Marley worked hard that were worth so much money, but then they died and didn't have a will. They didn't have, you know, proper estate planning. And so because of that, you know, the state, the government decides who gets that money. And it is given to, you know, your next of kin. You might not even, you know, like your cousin or your brother or whoever, but now that person gets to, you know, get your money, and they might not necessarily do what you wanted them to do with it, or, you know, they may not pass it down to your kids, or if you don't have kids, to your nephews and nieces and things of that nature. And so that's why a will, an estate, a trust, even life insurance, right? People think that life insurance is just about, you know, burying your loved one, where that is a function of it. But life insurance could also work as a way. Of mine, passed away. He was about 80 years old, and then so he left his, his house to his, his daughter. But he didn't understand how a reverse mortgage works, and so he took out a reverse mortgage, which meant that at the time of his passing, the money that was owed on that reverse mortgage was had to be paid up immediately, or they lose the house. Yeah. The daughter had no choice. The daughter thought that she was going to keep the house. She has this big bill for $245,000 because that's how much he took out, for the reverse mortgage. And now she had to sell the house, which she wound up selling it for more than it was worth, but more than the 245. But now she doesn't have the home. Now she has to start all over. Had he knew about insurance and took out life insurance that covered the reverse mortgage. So if he had life insurance for $300,000, let's say, and then now the mortgage is up, he takes that so now the proceeds, his daughter takes that proceeds, pays off the house, and then now owns the house, and then now the daughter, who has 2 kids, can continue that cycle of passing it down a generation to generation. That's how you build generational wealth. And so that's why it's important for us to understand what a will is, understand what estate planning is, understanding a trust, right? Because sometimes, we may not, trust, lack of better words, we may not trust our loved ones with what they're going to do with the money. And so we can create a trust that dictates what people do with the money, that has contingencies, so that even after we're gone, we can still make sure that our family is following the footsteps that we want them to follow. Because when you look at the statistics, black, brown, white, whatever, most wealth is swindled within the 4th and 5th generation, right? So the first generation works hard for it. The second generation was there, so they know, and they start to build it, but they start giving the money to the 3rd generation. So the 3rd generation understands how to be, abundant, but they don't know the work that the first generation did to get the wealth. And so by the 4th and 5th generation, they feel entitled, and they start to swindle, and they start to get rid of that wealth. And so if you start creating these trusts that will make sure that there's certain things that you can't do. You can't sell this house. You can only get a certain amount of money if you go to college, or if you do certain things. If you have those provisions in your trust, you can also, create this, this generational wealth that you want to create. And the last point I want to make too about, wills, estates, trusts, and all that stuff is that you don't have to be a multi-millionaire to do it, right? If you have any assets, you can have an asset worth $100,000, $10,000. If you want to protect that asset, you can have a will. And so, we have to get out of the mindset that wills, estates, all of that stuff is only for the ultra rich. You don't have to be a multimillionaire. If you have an asset that you want to pass down, that you want to protect, you can do it at any level.
So what would be, because I've heard that there are a couple places you can do that online. I think LegalZoom is one of them. What would you say, or where would be a good reference for someone that may not have a lot of money, but the little money that they do have, they want to do it, they want to protect it in a legal way, but they may not have the money for an estate planning attorney? Is there a quick and dirty way that a person can have a will in place or something like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you mentioned one, LegalZoom is definitely a resource. There's other sort of like online legal places that you can, get a quick will done. You can actually go to like Staples, right? And that's not maybe something that, depending on how much assets you have, but you can actually go to Staples and they sell, forms that have wills, and you can write it down, you can get it notarized, right? And so there's really cost-effective ways that you can do it. Even hiring a lawyer to do it may not be that expensive, right? Like creating a will with a lawyer, is not really that expensive. And so those are the 3 ways. You can do it yourself, by going to Staples and buying the forms and filling out the forms yourself. You can go to, an online resource like LegalZoom, or you can hire a lawyer to do it. And again, you know, depending on the complexity. So, you know, most lawyers will charge by the hour. And so depending on the complexity, if you have a will that's not really that complex, you know, it may cost you $300, $400 maybe, you know, if it's not a complex one, by going to a lawyer. So I think that, you know, weigh out your options, see what you're trying to protect, but definitely, you know, everyone should be protecting their assets.
Very nice. Such a good point that you brought up as far as it doesn't matter how much money you have, because a lot of times we are guilty of thinking that, you know, if you don't have a certain amount of money, that you don't even need to worry about that. You know, you don't really have much to leave or anything like that as well.
Yeah.
So in your book, Mr. Ash, you did talk about budgeting, and we were reading about, you know, differentiating between needs and wants and things like that. So as you were talking just now about the estate planning and wills, it made me think about how you could use budgeting before, you know, that point. Let's just say if you lose a loved one and there's some money left, you know, for you, how you can use budgeting in that way, as well as how you can use budgeting in your everyday life. So could you expound upon that for us?
No, absolutely. And that's a great point, Amber. Like, I intentionally wrote the book in such a way where I tackle individual responsibility with your finances before we even get to, you know, just before we get into you know, all of the community building. And the reason that's important is because, you know, how we manage, you know, one thing is how we're going to manage everything. And so if we can't manage our budget, you know, how are we going to manage an inheritance? How are we going to manage, you know, a business? How are we going to manage, you know, other bigger complex things if we can't manage our, you know, what we do personally? And so it's important that we focus on creating a budget, understanding the difference between needs and wants. And it's not even saying that we can't get what we want, but your needs can't suffer because of your wants. And so it's really about prioritizing. It's putting first things first. It's about, you know, really saying to yourself, what are those things that are necessities, things that I have to have in order to live, in order to survive. And then after you take care of your necessities, you can budget for also those things that you want. If you want to go out, if you want to party, if you want to, you know, buy nice clothes, it's perfectly fine as long as you take care of your responsibilities first. And then as you create that habit, as you get to that space where you have the habit of saving, the habit of budgeting, the habit of, you know, putting first things first, you then can start to venture off into, you know, starting your own business, because the same habits of savings, the same habits of putting your needs before your wants is definitely, you know, habits that you need to have, you know, during the, you know, while you start a business, running a business. Same thing you need to have, you know, as you start thinking about, you know, life insurance and estate planning and passing down, assets to the next generation. And then, you know, budgeting and savings and, you know, making your money work for you are also habits that you need to pass down to your kids, right? Because you can't be the only person that understands the importance of finance, because when you're not here anymore, they need to have that same knowledge. And so, you know, that whole budgeting process is something that needs to happen as a family. So that way, you know, you start to create this paradigm shift, not only with one person, not only with the couple, but everybody in the family understands the importance, the difference between needs and wants, the importance of, you know, paying yourself first, the importance of, you know, having financial goals broken down into short-term goals, midterm goals, long-term goals. You know, having all of that foundation is going to be important for the longevity, the financial longevity of your family.
And I think that's a great point, Doc. And I think that if you're not disciplined enough to remember to, you know, take out a certain amount of money for your budget, automate. Absolutely. In 2018, there are so many apps out there, guys, that will literally take a minuscule amount over a weekly period, a daily period, a monthly period. We talked about in a previous video about our $5 a day investing challenge that we got from the idea from Dr. Boyce Watkins. And so what we have is literally coming out of our bank account, $5 a day is automatically going into an investing account that allows us to live our lives and tackle our other goals, but know that we are taking care of business automatically. And it's just literally off of each paycheck, Some money goes to this investing. Some money goes to purchasing stocks.
Exactly.
Some money goes to dream chasing. If you're paying student loans, some money is going to student loans. Automate it. That way you take yourself out of the equation, but you put the bag in there, keep the bag in there, but it's automatically doing what it needs to do. And there are lots of apps that, can help you in that process. Shifting to the next question here, there was a chapter where you talked about that line where Jay talked about how a good friend of his, Emory Jones, who, for a couple of things that happened back in the day, he was in jail for a long period of time. Him and Jay-Z stayed in contact the whole time. And then as soon as he got out, even though he had been locked down for so long, he has relatively been able to literally surpass where he is and where others are. And so the line specifically is, Emory passed you folks, or you ninjas, we'll just leave it at that. Emory passed you people, and he did a bid. Right. So for that person out there that feels like they're too old, they're too deep in debt, they didn't go to college, they're washed up in their mind. They just feel like, it's over for me, it's curtains. What would you say to that person, reflecting on, how Emory turned his life around? What would you say to that person that feels like it's a wrap, they can never bounce back?
No, absolutely. I think as long I think that people don't realize that age, circumstance doesn't become a barrier unless you allow it to. Everything that happens in our lives happens for a reason. And so we have to use that. We have to see, what was that reason? What was God? What was the universe trying to teach us in that lesson? And then by understanding that there are lessons in it, we then use our obstacles, we use our challenges to kind of help propel us to the next level. It's really about a mindset. People stop themselves, right? Nothing can ever stop you until you tell yourself that this is an obstacle. And so to anybody that may think that they're too old, anybody that may believe that their situation is stopping them immediately. And so sometimes it may be difficult, right? You might be surrounding yourself with the wrong people. You may be around people who who are also agreeing with you that yeah, you're too old. Why would you even do that? And so I think that it's also important that we make sure that we watch our surroundings, right? You think about the time that Emory was in jail. It's nice to have a friend like Jay-Z, right? But even not having the monetary access that Jay-Z has, the fact that Jay-Z made sure that he kept his name alive, right? That he was talking about Emory. He was on calls with Emory, giving Emory hope, right? And so I think that for anybody who might be down and out, change your surroundings immediately. Because that's the first step. Because if you are around other people who don't believe in themselves either, that's a dangerous recipe for giving up. Surround yourself. Find those people who are doing what you want to do. There are so many stories out there, and this is a great time where we have access to everybody. Like, you don't have to know Oprah to be able to be inspired by Oprah's story, right? You don't have to know certain people in order to be inspired by their story. And so, find somebody who has a similar story to you. Find somebody who has a similar background. See what obstacles, what things did they go through, and how did they overcome those obstacles? Because there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that you're going through, I promise you, somebody has been through it, but somebody has also conquered it too. And so I think that it's really about your surroundings. It's about what you read. It's about what you feed yourself. It's about what you watch. It's about, listening to your internal voice. I am somebody who, I grew up in the projects in New York. And so there was a lot of negative self-talk, right? Because people were telling me every day that I was going to be dead or in jail by 25. People kept telling me, how I wasn't going to be successful. So I started to internalize that, and I started telling myself a lot of negative things. But it wasn't until I started surrounding myself with other people who kept telling me how great I am. And I'm like, who, me? You talking about me? And then so the more I kept, the more I kept hearing it, the more I kept getting that support system. I started to believe it. I started to tell myself that I was great. And so even those people who still were doubting, my greatness, I was able to drown out that noise because I was able to start to tap into that greatness. I was able to tap into affirmations. I am a big believer in affirmations. I say affirmations every single day because there are still some goals, some things, that I want to accomplish. And so every day I'm reminding myself of these things that I want to accomplish. But I'm not saying that I want to do them. I am affirming that it's already happened. I'm affirming that I'm a New York Times bestselling author. I'm affirming that that I'm an Emmy award-winning television host. I'm affirming that I am a nationally syndicated radio host. I'm affirming, that I am a multimillionaire. I am affirming that I live in my perfect home. I am affirming that my family is healthy, wealthy, and wise. I am affirming these things every single day. And the more and more I start affirming it, the more and more I start to believe it, the more and more I start to feel it. And as I feel it, I start to attract it to me, attract the opportunities that are going to create, that into my reality. And so anybody who's, in that space where, they're down and out and they don't understand, why they keep going through the same things, it's really about that mindset. Shift your mindset. It might not happen overnight, but just continue to tell yourself over and over how great you are, how you deserve to be wealthy, how you deserve to be healthy, how you deserve the abundance that God has given you, your birthright abundance. Tell yourself all these things and surround yourself with people that believe it, and eventually that thought process will become a reality.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, we can relate with that so much because at our church home, when we were in Houston before we moved here to Georgia, our pastor constantly talks about exactly what you were saying, Mr. Ash, about the affirmations and declarations, just speaking over your life. And eventually, it's going to come to pass. It just has no choice but to come to pass.
Yeah, I mean, because I think just from a faith standpoint, we're waiting on God, and God's like, I've equipped you with everything that you need to accomplish every single goal that you have in your life. You don't need what he has or what she has. You have everything that you need.
It's already in you.
You just have to hack yourself, figure out those areas where you are wasting time, the company that you're keeping, the relationships that you really shouldn't even be around. And what do you need to do at this point, even if you are deep in the hole, to dig yourself out of? Because all you need is a shovel, and you have that shovel in you, and you can get out of that situation by constantly telling yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. I was made for more, I was created for more. So that's right. That's dope, man.
And like you were saying, daily, it's something that's continuous. You can't just start one day and then kind of slack off. You have to constantly be feeding your spirit, you know? Most definitely.
Because there's enough voices out there that, like you said, that there's through the enemy and other factors that tell us that we're washed, it's done, it's a wrap. And you, like you said, on a daily basis, you have to put that one foot in front of the other, get out of bed, still keep grinding, still keep hustling, still keeping God first, and it will come to pass.
And to that point, a lot of times people are telling you what you can't do because they don't believe they can do it, right? It has nothing to do with you. A lot of the times people are trying. So that's out the noise. They think they're washed. They think that they can't do it. And so who are you to think that you can do it if they don't think that they can do it? And so, that's why it's important. Will Smith said this, Jim Rohn said this, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if you're spending so much time with people who are not accomplished, and it doesn't have to be, we're not talking multi-millionaires, but people just have to, just make sure that the people that you're surrounding with are people who are forward moving, who are forward thinking, who are, positive, who are hopeful. And you start to surround yourself with those people, you start to, get that same energy, and then you can move your life forward.
Most definitely.
For sure, man. Let's go.
All right. So we're going to move on to the next question. And it's kind of controversial, or it can be, should I say. You have a lot of financial experts out there that some agree that, you should not use credit. Some agree that you need credit at some place or another in your financial experience. So we wanted to know, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that, credit is a necessity, especially if you are trying to build wealth, because when you look at the wealthy, The wealthy do not use their money, right? And so, a way of background, I am a 14-year banking professional. I was in banking 14 years. I did 2 years as a private banker, meaning that I managed the money of, people who had 250,000 or more in investable assets. My largest client, was worth $22 million. And I can tell you from my experience, wealthy people do not use their money. They leverage other people's money to make more money. And so for those who, I understand, why some financial advisors will say, don't use credit, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to save you from you, right? They're assuming, or not even assuming, right? Based on the numbers, there's so many people that just use credit the wrong way. And so, these financial advisors have taken a stance that says, you know what, there's a majority of people that don't use credit the right way. So just don't use it at all. Keep yourself out of trouble. If you can't use cash, don't buy it. But I'll use myself as an example. I'm a first generation American. My parents are Haitian. And they came here from Haiti, and so I didn't have any inheritance. In fact, my mother didn't speak any English, so she was working factory jobs, was making barely enough for us to live. And so I was packing bags at 8 years old. I was selling T-shirts. I was on the grind at an early age. By the time I was 24 years old, I did very well for myself from the banking perspective, and I bought my first home at 25. I did not save up enough money to buy a home at 25. I had credit. I had a down payment, and I had a FHA loan, right? I was able to put 3% down on a home, and that's how I became a homeowner at 25. And so I get it. I understand why people try to say to stay away from credit. But at the end of the day, for a lot of us, a majority of us who don't have an inheritance, for the majority of us who don't have, money, waiting for us to go to college, for most of us who, don't have that home that's going to be passed down to us, we're starting from scratch. And if we have to wait, if I have to wait to save up $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, I'm in New York, and so. Right, the price of a home here is really expensive, and so it would have took me 30 years to save up the amount of money necessary to buy a home. And so, why give in that 30 years? I'm going to give my money to a landlord, so that they could be paying off their mortgage. No, sir, no, ma'am, I'm not doing that. And so, to those who, I would say that there are dumb ways that you could use credit. Right. And so, I say that stay away from those ways. But if you're going to use credit to enhance your life, I say go for it. I say leverage credit in order to build assets. I say leverage credit in order to start your business. I say leverage credit in order to do those things that are going to make you more money. Don't use credit to buy clothes. Don't use credit to buy a car. Don't use credit for the things that are going to depreciate. But definitely, absolutely, without a doubt, use credit for things that are going to increase your net worth. Is going to help you buy assets, help you create, wealth for you and your family.
And just to that point, I mean, for us, for example, we have one credit card, but it's a credit card that has reward points on it. So we could use the money, our regular money, and then just buy the stuff, but we run it through our credit card and we pay the full balance off at the end of the month. So of course, the importance, if you're trying to build up credit, as Ash is talking about, if you're going to get a credit card, you really should only have just one with a decent balance on it. And the goal should be to pay that balance off in full every single month. Because where you get tripped up on, where you start paying that 16, 17, 18, as high as 30% APR interest, is when you don't pay that balance off on a monthly basis and you just make that minimum payment. Y'all, it might be $25. You might think you're good. But if you can pay that full balance off at the end of the month, you will see your credit just boost, because we started out with poor credit when we met in college. We both went to the same HBCU, and we saw the people on campus that were giving away the free T-shirts, for sign up for a credit card, free pizza, all that stuff into a broke college kid.
You're like,
yeah, you know,
take it, right?
yeah. So, you know, as we get older, and if you're in college now, don't fall for the trap. Don't fall for it. Don't sign up for that credit card. But if you are in debt, guys, and you're trying to get yourself out of it, there are ways that you can do it. Google is so helpful in showing you where to get started. In a lot of situations, you don't need to pay these credit counselors out there. You can literally pull your credit report for free every year by going to creditkarma.com, annualcreditreport.com. Those are the two places that I know that are legit, that you can literally pull your credit report, see the damage.
Yes.
You know, if it is not good, see the areas where you can possibly make those payment arrangements, maybe even settle your balance, you know, on your credit card, or settle your balance on that old debt, and you will watch your credit score move up and up and up. And like Ash was saying, you know, if you don't have the cash to buy that house, which most of us don't, having that great credit score, I think the minimum is 540 and above to qualify for an FHA. Or do you know offhand what it is?
Yeah, they actually dropped it. So yeah, it used to be like 620, 580, but yeah, definitely 540 is the average to get an FHA loan.
Yeah, and so that right there gives you the opportunity, if you're responsible, to turn your financial life around. But again, it's all about, with credit, it's all about being responsible, y'all.
Absolutely.
Don't ball out.
Yeah,
exactly.
But and we know your time is valuable, by the way. We just have a few more quick questions here. In your book, you know, you mentioned as far as the line that Jay-Z referenced, as far as Jewish people owning all of the property in America. We know that that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Absolutely.
But the point that Jay was making is that that community, by and large, does own a lot.
Absolutely. Yes.
In the United States, and how our community is kind of lacking in the ownership space versus, you know, Koreans that own the beauty supplies, Middle Eastern demographic that owns a lot of the gas stations out there. This is just reality, guys.
Absolutely.
So, Ash, what are some ways, you know, that we can start, you know, leave those advances alone, and start taking real chances?
Yeah, I think it's really about building up our communities. It's about first taking care of ourselves and saving and having that money, that nest egg. But then it's really about starting those businesses. Finding those places where we frequent, finding those those spaces where we're spending so much money, and how can we create those institutions ourselves. And that's why, to the point of of talking about 9-to-5s, right? Lately I hear people all the time talk about entrepreneurship and 9-to-5s as if having a 9-to-5 is a bad thing. But not everybody could be an entrepreneur. Like, it's a different animal. It's a different beast to be, to work for yourself and to have that responsibility. And so think about those who do work a 9-to-5. Think about the money that you could be investing into a entrepreneur, right? We don't need everybody to be an entrepreneur, but you could be a silent business partner. You can use, some of that money that you're making and fund a local business to circulate that money back into the community. And so I think it's important that we first start to look at our community, right? We're the only community. If you go to our communities, and like you said, this is where I'm not making this up. You're not making this up. Amber's not making this up. This is all, documented. You go to our communities, it is a melting pot. Everybody owns a business there except us. You go to other communities, and it's the majority of the people who occupy that community who have, businesses within that community. So it's important that we start to shift. We start to look, where are we, spending our money, and how can we start to take hold of those, of those communities, because we need to, take back control. And I think it starts there. It starts with, us having, ability, the capital. And so, when you think about loans, you need a credit for it. You need good credit for it. When you think about, us saving up, you're going to need, the discipline to save. But we need to start building our own institutions and start that ownership ourselves.
Gotcha. And that makes sense, man. That makes perfect sense. Amber had to step away. Libby is a 5-year-old, so you know how that can be sometimes. Yes. But I do want to talk about quickly some good points that we've been talking about, guys. And if you're just jumping in, guys, make sure that you check Mr. Cash's website out, IamAshCash.com. And where can people connect with you on social? Because I know people are probably finding out, want to know how they can, find out more about you.
Absolutely. So yeah, contact information is there. But then I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can find me at I am AshCash as well.
On all those platforms.
All those platforms, absolutely.
All right, excellent, excellent. So there's also a line on Jay's album where he talks about, you know, nobody wins when the family feuds, right? Man. So tying this situation, you know, financial empowerment, getting control of your money for 2018 and beyond, what are some ways as married couples that we can start to work together, you know, because not everybody operates as a unit as it relates to marriage and money. Yep. So what would be some advice that you can give to those married couples out there that are looking to figure out how to, you know, put their money together and really make power moves in their marriage? No,
absolutely. That's a great question. And I think it starts with goals, right? If or situation is, and we're saying, you know, we want to go to this destination, there might be different ways to get to that destination, but the goal has to be the same. And so I think it's important that we make sure that we have common goals, that we're you know, as a family collectively, we have our short-term goals together, we have our midterm goals together, we have our long-term goals together, and then we create a plan on how we're going to reach those goals. Because, you know, most times the reason why families, you know, go different directions is because no one has set, you know, a clear goal, a clear objective. Like, this is what we're working towards, and this is how we're going to do it. Yeah, and it has to be buy-in from everybody involved. You can't just, you know, set the goal in your mind and start moving in one direction and allow someone else to create a goal in their mind and move in a different direction. It's about being collective. It's about, you know, setting a goal, coming together with the goal, agreeing with that goal, setting a plan for that goal, and then checking in often to make sure that you're constantly moving in the right direction with the goal. And so, you know, being of the same mind, you know, and having your goals, you know, down pat, and then, you know, creating the steps that's going to take is what's going to start that process of, you know, of really getting the finances together from a family perspective.
So what you basically would say is it takes teamwork to make the dream work.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, in our marriage, you know, money was a conversation that we had with each other at the onset. We said, okay, well, what are your views on life? What are your views on our faith? What are our views on children? Do we want to have some? How many want to have? All those conversations you really can avoid, and these are to the married couples and those that are engaged and getting married. You can avoid a lot of headaches in life by having those tough conversations at the onset. I think that, well, I know that money is one of the #1 reasons people get, you know, divorced and have those kind of issues, and you can avoid all the headache. That's messing up your generational wealth anyway, getting divorces and all those kind of things. You're messing up the money.
Absolutely, yes.
Have those conversations at the onset, get on the same page about life, get on the same page about money. And if one person is not as financially savvy or not as interested in, you know, getting their credit together, getting their financial house in order, well, then you might have a decision that you might need to make before you make that decision to jump that broom with that person. So that's the point, is we are all about building the family, moving forward as a community, strengthening our community, having, you know, children that are in 2-parent households because mommy and daddy decided they want to be different than what they may have observed, and how we can strengthen our communities moving forward. So I think that it's the only way. Nobody wins when the family feuds. So if you're not gonna win, and that's not gonna work. So my last question for you, and baby, come on in, you can jump on it. Like I said, guys, we have life. We live real life. So living needs us, and so that is what it is. But my last question for you, Ash, is what is the importance? You know, Jay talked about, you know, this spiritual stuff really works. Man. So what is the importance of having faith over fear as it relates to money, starting that business, just finances in general?
Man, I think overall it is the most important part of your financial journey, of your life journey. People do not give it as much credit as they need. But I think at the end of the day, you know, spirituality, whatever you believe in, it's important that you believe in a higher power. You understand that there's something out there greater than you that has given you everything that you need. And so when you start to be afraid, when you start to put too much energy towards what can't happen, you are being disrespectful to your higher power. You are not giving your higher power the just due that it deserves. And so spirituality is something that must be practiced. You must believe in your higher power in order to get what you deserve in life. And so the spiritual stuff really works. And I would challenge anybody to try it. Right? To instead of putting so much energy or so much faith in yourself, meaning that because you're thinking something won't happen, and you don't believe that miracles happen, or you don't believe that if you put in the work, if you putting in work, faith without works is dead, right? So it's important that you put out, you tell God, you tell the universe what you want, but you are willing to put in the work and see how much doors open, right? I'm a living testament. I remember, I've had a lot of, failures in my life, but a lot of the success happened at times or in ways that I didn't even imagine, right? Because all I did was I said, you know what, this is the outcome that I want. And this is the destination. This is where I want to go. And I allowed my spirituality to take over. I allowed God to take over. I demonstrated to God, though, that this is what I want. I demonstrated to God that I'm willing to put in the work. I did that demonstration. And then once you show that demonstration, then the doors start to open up. And so I think that it is the journey in your life journey, find that higher power, find that thing that you believe in, that thing that resonates with you, that faith, because, once you have faith, anything is possible. Absolutely anything is possible.
Yeah.
We agree 100%. With God, all things are possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, I hope that you guys watching this video are as excited as we are. I hope that you glean some value from everything Mr. Ash explained to us as far as how you can implement some of the tenets of his book, the Wake Up Call, Financial Inspiration from 444. Get this book, guys. Yes. I'm telling you, it's a quick read. You'll get through this book probably in 2-3 days. But it shouldn't be about speed reading. You should really be looking to apply the principles in your life. This book, we got it highlighted, pencil, all different areas that we're like, okay, we knew this, but man, I love the way that it was explained in this way. This is how we're going to implement this. This is how we're going to implement that. Get this book, guys.
And just for the audience, like I know you guys are going to put the link below. Once you hit the link, it might be a different cover, and so I was having some issues, so I switched the cover around just to protect my assets. So,
it's the same. Like black now, right?
It's a black and gold cover. I just to be safe. I wanted to be safe. And so so definitely it's a black and gold cover, but same information, nothing has changed. Just definitely wanted to point it out because I don't want anybody to go there and say, well, it's a different, it looks different. So you guys have the collector's edition. So that might be worth a lot of money right now.
For sure. And it's definitely $1 million worth of game in this book, guys. It really is. So Mr. Ash, again, if you can let everybody know, let our audience know how anyone can reach you and how they can connect with you on social media one last time for the audience.
No, absolutely. And again, Marvin, Amber, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your platform. If anybody wants to connect with me, you can visit my website, IamAshCash.com. Follow me on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at IamAshCash.
All right, for sure, y'all. All right, well, again, this is our generational wealth building series for the Family-O YouTube channel. We got more exciting content coming. Yes. We wanted to set it off with Mr. Cash breaking the game down from the album 444 and how it applies into your life. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at _family_o and on Facebook at TheRealFamilyO. As well, this is Marvin.
Amber.
And lives in the other room. And we're with the Family-O.
Thank you for watching.
All right, guys. Y'all have a blessed day.
Yes.
All right.